welcome back to another super duper exciting, can't wait for it episode of Beerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host at Hot BFF with two P's, Chris Hopper, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. As always, joined via the power of the interwebs by the bearded beauty himself, Dan Thury. Dan, how are you?
I got about 3 hours of sleep.
Good.
So I'm off to a great start. I'm on beer 2. I may at some point grab one of my barrel-aged beers because I'm off tomorrow.
Wake up call?
Wake up call.
It's one way to get your coffee.
That's definitely one way to do it. So I'm doing great otherwise. This is gonna be a hell of a show, I think.
Yeah, I'm more excited for this show than anything else that we have ever done. So we are joined to talk beer and football by, assuming the internet is correct, a man who was the starting cornerback for the 8th grade Harrisonville Wildcats. A man who once grew a beard that would make an Amish man jealous, and there's proof on Twitter. The senior writer for CBS Sports, lead analyst on Fantasy Football Today, which was the first podcast I ever listened to about fantasy football. And more importantly, the guy that enjoys beer and hates laundry, Heath Cummings. Heath, how are you?
You do your research. That's a good pull on the 8th grade Harrisonville Wildcats. I will say I was a terrible corner. Thankfully, we never played anyone who could throw. I did make one game-saving tackle in overtime, and it was like one of 4 tackles I made on the year.
That's just the only one you got to talk about, though. Nobody needs to throw. Right. There are only 4 in the year.
Absolutely. There are 2 plays that are talked about in my football career. One of them is me dropping just the easiest interception with nothing but grass in front of me, and me making a tackle. So one of them's good at least.
That's draft worthy for the Bears. So I'm sure most everybody knows, but why don't and I called it out in the intro. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you on Twitter and stuff too before we get into it?
Yeah, I'm at Heath Cummings SR. You can find me at CBS Sports on CBS Sports HQ. Fantasy Football Today podcast. It seems, I was high. You said I was a senior writer. It seems like every year less of my job becomes writing.
Yeah.
I guess people don't like reading anymore, but we do a lot of video shows and podcasts and Twitches and whatever. So any format you want.
Awesome. All right. So again, we're gonna chat some beer, chat some football. Not really a firm topic for today's show, just kind of a little chit chat. So before we do that, though, we gotta intro what we're drinking. So let's find out what's fueling Dan and I today.
What's fueling Beerfield?
Dan, why don't you go ahead and kick it off? What are you sipping on?
I am drinking Vanilla Bitch Slap. It's from Pig Minds Brewing. They're out of Chesney Park, Illinois. This is a vanilla American red ale aged with Madagascar vanilla beans. I was pumped to get this because I love super controversial names that I get to watch people get really, really uncomfortable when you say it out loud. At work. So I will give you guys my thoughts on this a little bit later.
They would actually price that one though instead of they wouldn't Hoppy Bukkake.
Yeah, they're okay with saying bitch, but God forbid they put Bukkake.
Yep, that was a bad marketing move by that particular brewery, but good beer from that particular brewery. All right, I am drinking Funhouse. This is from Sudwork Brewing. It's a blueberry pastry sour. So sour with blueberries, lactose, and vanilla out of Davis, California. So we'll give 4 reviews midway through the episode, and Heath does not have beer with him today, which is completely fine. We do not force drinking on the show. We just encourage it. So he's going to give us a review about halfway through. We're going to go ahead and kick into a half news segment, which is not really news because there wasn't really anything. So we're going to talk about a couple things that have leaked today, though, and get some thoughts.
News.
I say today, and really they came out, coach speak throughout the week. So, but 2 offenses really that for fantasy, a lot of people are going to be paying attention to. So I want to start this off with a conversation about the Bucs. Quarterback coach Clyde Christensen disclosed that Bruce Arians wants to keep the offense the same with an addition of quote Brady influence. So I want to try to interpret what Brady influence means. So we've talked about the Bucs at length on the show. So Heath, I want to go ahead and start with you, let you kick off the conversation here. What do you see out of the Bucs this year with Brady, who at this stage in his career, obviously a different quarterback than Jameis Winston was?
Yeah, I think this is like coach speak. I try not to listen to very much, but this is one of those things that I've certainly wondered a lot about. The offense that Bruce Arians ran with Jameis Winston, I'm not going to say Tom Brady can't do that. We just have no evidence over the last few years whether he can do that on a consistent basis. He does not, generally speaking, want to hold on to the ball and take hits. And I understand I'm not that far from Tom Brady's age. I don't either. So if he's going to, I will say this, if they're really going to have him play a little bit more like Jameis Winston, he's going to take more hits than he's used to, and he's going to throw more interceptions than he's used to. But he might throw for 5,000 yards.
He could. And what about Godwin and Evans? Do you see, obviously both were, I think they both ended up top 10 last year. Godwin obviously had a massive breakout year. Do you see either of them being hurt by this shift? And if so, how badly? Because I think that's going to be one of the big either over or under reactions of the year is how you adjust those two.
First, I had to correct my not drinking beer. So I'm drinking beer now to interrupt the question. I've got a Bushka Stout from Hollywood down here in South Florida.
Awesome.
Oh.
So, I'm a little bit worried about Mike Evans. I think that, as far as what we know, Godwin has historically run the types of routes that Brady targets more often than what Evans does. And Godwin's been a little bit more efficient than Evans. And so I worry with Gronk there now, with Brady's propensity to drop the ball off to the backs. If Evans falls just a couple of points shy of where Godwin's at in terms of target share, that it's going to be hard for him to be a top 12 wide receiver. I still think he'll be probably in that 15 range, but I'm not sure he's top 12 anymore.
Yeah, and that's pretty much about where we've been with the whole thing, is that you haven't seen Brady really have to air it out a whole lot in New England with the running game that's there and the defense that was always seemed to be good. They didn't have to win that way. So there's been no, I hate to say it, but Brady was more game managing lately than over the last couple of years than he was actually winning or putting up, big gaudy numbers. So the Bucs kind of have that unsure at the running in the running game. They did bring in Gronk, but I think that Evans is exactly where we were worried as well, just because Godwin, it does seem to be the more nuanced route runner, not so much the get downfield and win the jump ball type or get a step on a guy that Mike Evans is with the big frame and everything and the massive athleticism. So, Dan, do you got anything to add?
Yeah, I think for Mike Evans, I think what we could expect is maybe some of the Josh Gordon that we saw with Tom Brady in those last couple of years, where he could have one of those double-digit target games, but it's few and far between being pushed downfield. And you can see guys like Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, new receiver, 5th-round draft pick out of Minnesota, and Justin Watson, who can fit that slot role when they run out 3 wide. You bring in Gronk, you may start to see a little bit more 12 personnel. It's more of that 2 tight end set, and maybe you start to see a guy like Mike Evans, who could end up maybe seeing some of the vertical type of passes and that vertical style of offense that you saw with Jameis Winston at the helm. So I've always been tapping on Mike Evans as someone who at least early on in his career before Godwin got it going, fed and made his mark based off of volume. You bring in you get a more efficient receiver in Godwin. You got to see how the offense truly operated. I think Brady can get it done, and I do agree with Heath where this may be the worst defense and offensive line that he's had in a long time, and we may see Brady kind of have that almost Brett Favre type of resurgence when he joined Minnesota. where, given his older age, all of a sudden he comes off the rails and just blows up, for a season.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought Brady meant a little bit too when he said that he still had things to prove and wanted to keep playing was, he needs to prove he can win away from Belichick. That's about the only thing he hasn't proved. But also that he can still win games on him and not so much with a good team around him and put it on that arm of his. So, all right, next topic here. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin has stated that the team fully anticipates Ben Roethlisberger being ready for the season opener. So Roethlisberger coming off of an elbow injury. Dan, we'll go ahead and start with you on this one and then move it along. But Roethlisberger coming out to Heath and whatever else. But Roethlisberger coming out the elbow injury. Do we expect him at 100%? I know this is where coach speak kind of comes in play to hit the ground running with where he was at. Is he going to take a little bit more time to come back from that elbow injury? And really, how do we expect the offense to bounce back if they do it all there in Pittsburgh after what was really a down year just across the board for everybody, largely due to injuries? But it seems like as soon as Roethlisberger went down, the wheels came off the whole thing.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly last year. Like even with, even pre-injury, just with how good New England's defense was, it just never felt like we were going to see the same Pittsburgh offense. As for the actual injury question, I mean, I don't know if we'll really know until they get back onto the field and start practicing in pads, and we start to hear reports, with beat writers and stuff out there saying what they're seeing on the field and whether or not, Big Ben is actually 100% or what type of percentage he thinks he's at that point. What I do know is that I think even 80% Big Ben is better than what we got last year, and it bodes well for a bounce back season for Juju. I like Deontay Johnson and James Washington to kind of, find themselves in their second and third year. You bring in a big vertical threat in Chase Claypool. Whether he's receiver or tight end or not remains to be seen, but we know Pittsburgh's track record of developing receivers is pretty on point. And someone who gets lost in all this, who was kind of a sneaky winner from the draft, and James Conner, was just how much he gets pushed down. We're always a little bit off on him because his ADP was so high, and it's something we preach here. We don't hate players, we hate ADPs. I feel like James Conner has become a massive value, and just when he's been healthy and what the offense likes to do in Pittsburgh and and feed their running back. So I'm excited for it. I hope Big Ben's 100% by the time the season starts. It's just as soon as those reports come out, you're going to start to see guys like Juju and Conner, I think, see their value or see their ADP rise back up to a reasonable level.
Heath, what are your thoughts on the Steelers with Ben potentially coming back? How do you feel about that group?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very easy to get excited about them if Ben's back and 100%. And I kind of think not so much. Yes, as a quarterback, obviously we saw they don't have a good secondary option, which is terrifying for Juju and Deontay and Connor even.
I mean, Duck Hodges, come on.
if he's not right. But I think you have to look at what Tomlin said is one thing, but you have to look at what they did this offseason. And they didn't if they aren't sure right now if Ben's all right, then they've done a terrible job this offseason of preparing themselves for the possibility that he's not. They've behaved as if they don't really have any question whether he's going to be okay to start the season. So I'm mostly just going to go with that. I think Juju's a great value. Maybe I and several of us got too excited about Juju last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm not, I still kind of don't think so. What he did as a 22-year-old in the NFL, mediocre, average, slightly above average receivers don't generally do that. I just think if Ben's okay, Juju's going to be a wide receiver one.
Yeah, and it's hard to disagree with that take on Juju as well, especially if Ben's okay. I mean, Juju himself dealt with injuries last year, which kind of helped to derail his season a bit. And as you said, Mason Rudolph and, love the hype, but Duck Hodges weren't really the answer there, as much as I hate to disrespect a glowing prospect like Duck Hodges. But, Juju did do amazing things as a 22-year-old. And I think the bigger thing there is that you don't cut into Antonio Brown's target share like that if you're mediocre. You just don't get that type of opportunity. Nobody saw him as mediocre, and I think he is poised for that type of bounce back. I think that my biggest concern with it is maybe at the beginning, and this could be in redraft or even dynasty, a buy low stretch to where, you've got the coronavirus that's cutting into OTAs. You've got Ben working his way back from an elbow injury. That it may be more of a gradual build up to where they were than just come out of the gates and hit the ground running. So I think that, even if the value is not necessarily there on draft day, that you still may be able to find value even as much through the first quarter of the season while they work back and get that offense back into rhythm. And, while Ben really builds that arm strength back up, because without OTAs, you don't know what training camp's going to look like. You do got to play it day by day in that sense. But, I think that they will get there, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and cut into the meat and potatoes, the original plan questions. I was just going to fill the news segment with more Frank Gore talk, but I felt like we did enough of that last week.
Probably. Maybe.
Pick your six.
All right, pick your six, our new favorite and really only segment where Dan and I both pick a series of questions and we alternate through them and ask whoever our esteemed guest and happens to be, and put them a little bit on the hot seat. But really, it's more roundtable discussion than anything. Some of it's fun, some of it's football. So, Dan, let's start with football. You've actually got the first three here.
Yeah, so we're gonna start off. With the rookie draft reaction, I've done, I think, 5 rookie drafts. My league starts on Saturday. I've done a few mock drafts. I'm assuming you guys have done rookie drafts since the actual draft has ended.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
although yours should start on Friday, not Saturday, but that's neither.
I know. I lied. It's all my fault. I know. But what I want to know is, it's what are your guys' initial thoughts on these rookie drafts? Who's being overdrafted? If anybody, who's a great value, and just what are the thoughts of what we've seen? Heath, we'll kick it with you.
Yeah, I don't think the first one will be very popular because it seems like everyone has gotten more excited about this guy since the draft than I did. But I didn't really love Jalen Reagor before the draft, and I'm not completely convinced that this Philadelphia landing spot is like the godsend that everyone seems to see. This is an Eagles team. The last 2 years has been the lowest in the NFL in terms of the percentage of their targets going to wide receivers. They throw it to tight ends and running backs a ton. They drafted like 16 wide receivers, and they still have Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. They're paying way too much money. Nobody's going to take those guys. So if those guys are healthy, I'm not certain that Jalen Reagor is better at Deshaun Jackson's job than he is, and he's not going to do Alshon Jeffrey's job. Like if Alshon's not healthy, they just don't have that wide receiver. I don't think. Yeah. So I think I saw Reagor in one of my most recent. I can't remember if it was a mock or a real one because I've done too many lately. But I saw him go ahead of Judy, and that doesn't make any sense at all to me.
No, that doesn't make any sense at all to me either. And on the Eagles thing, just real quick, we've talked about J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is a buy low candidate just because he dealt with injuries last year. He had some opportunity share, but was apparently pretty banged up. And you can get him for pennies. I moved back 4 spots in the second round and got J.J. Arcega-Whiteside for that. So, if you're going to take a value dart throw at some wide receiver there, that may even be the route to go.
Yeah, and then as far as my favorite value, it's another wide receiver. I think you get past those first 7 or 8 picks, depending on how you feel about Ruggs, and there's like seriously 5 or 6 different wide receivers who could make the claim to be the best one. I won't say Laviska Shenault's going to be the best one, but he is one of my favorites. He's certainly one of my favorites for where you can get him. Love the fact that Jacksonville's already talking about the different ways they want to have him involved, because there's probably not enough opportunity there with DJ Chark and D.D. Westbrook, just purely based on targets alone for Chenault to have an impact right away in this offense. But if they use him a little bit more similarly to the way the 49ers used Deebo Samuel last year and just get him involved in all different aspects of the game, then he could be someone that becomes a little bit interesting. And I like his profile a lot. I don't think it will take very long at all before he's the number 2 behind Chark in that offense.
Yeah, the one word I had for Chenault when I watched him was smooth, because everything he does just looks smooth. His routes, his agility, his speed, everything he did was just, it was smooth.
Yeah, since he was, I think since we started scouting these guys, I think Chenault has one of the highest ceilings, just with how many ways he can get it done, just with how dynamic of a player he was running the football, doing special teams, obviously as a receiver. He's built like a running back, but he'll be used like a receiver. I'll be interested to see, joking aside, if they do trade, Leonard Fournette, if somehow, some way Chenault, takes some of those carries away. I think he's going to eat into some of the Fournette targets. Obviously, he had over 100 targets this past season. There's regression coming down from that. And I think Chenault could also play a part into that. And I agree. I absolutely love Chenault. I love that range of just players there. Chenault, Brian Edwards, even guys like, Mims starting to slide back a little bit. Pittman's bounce up a little bit, but I do love that range of receivers right there.
All right. I'll go ahead and throw a couple of names out there for overdrafted and underdrafted. So for overdrafted for me, one guy that per FF Calc's ADP anyway was going at 107 for them. I don't know how accurate that is, but it seems like it could be. And that's Cam Akers. Not necessarily a huge fan of Cam Akers, at least not over like a Keyshawn Vaughan, who per that was going at 301. More on him later. But he landing with LA, who did nothing to address the interior of that offensive line, for a guy that won at college with athleticism, who was generally less efficient than what Keyshawn Vaughan was. I get the opportunity shares there, and I get that people want to like Akers, but there's some things that stood out as a little red flag to me. More specifically, I didn't see a whole lot of the breakaway speed, and I didn't see a whole lot of vision from him necessarily. So those are a couple things that when they've showed up, at least to me in the past, as I evaluate film, I tend to not be too far off on. And that gives me some pause around Cam Akers. I get the opportunities there. I do still think you should be in that kind of second tier of running backs, but some of the guys he was going ahead of, I just can't necessarily get behind. And then the other guy that I've got as an overdraft is the aforementioned Henry Ruggs, a guy who got drafted basically for the fact that he's super athletic. And it just reminds me of when John Ross went first round, because he ran a 4.240. Now, I will say that Ruggs' game speed looks a lot better than what John Ross's did, and there is more of an opportunity there, but I think he's just going to be a super frustrating guy to own most weeks, and I'm just not really sure that I want to take him over guys like, or at least at a tier price over guys like Laviska Shenault or Denzel Mims or Michael Pittman, so more on him later as well. So any thoughts on those overdrafts?
Yeah, I'm really conflicted on Ruggs, because I have definitely got myself in trouble in the past thinking I was smarter than NFL teams and they did something wrong, and I know what's going to happen in the future. Now, if there was going to be a team I'd feel better about doing that with, it would definitely be the Raiders. I just think, like, there was definitely a time where we thought that Gruden was really smart and innovative and would use players in the correct way. I've not seen a lot of evidence since he's come back with the Raiders, but I do think, like, if Oakland used Ruggs in a way that fit with Derek Carr's skill set, and they're just going to give him 120 targets within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage and set up blockers around him and put him in good situations, then I think he might actually just be awesome. But if they're going to play him more outside, and send him down the field, then I think he might just be useless. I think it depends so much on what the Raiders are planning on doing with him, and I have no idea.
Yeah, I was tepid on Terry McLaurin last year too for a little bit of the same reasons, and obviously I ended up owning McLaurin, was happy for it, but there are other guys, like John Ross, for example, who I mentioned before, that it's also worked out. So it's the tepidness that makes me want to put him down, another tier in kind of that range where it's like, all right, these guys are athletic, they could be it, but you're not really sure.
Yep.
Dan, thoughts on Akers or Ruggs?
As you know, I'm a pretty big Akers guy. I tend to follow because I'm not a big film grinder. I'll watch film. I'll watch a few games. I'll watch highlights. I like to get an idea of the stats that I see, the advanced stats that I see, and when I read articles and I do my own research, I like to see what's being validated. And with Akers, it's always intriguing because the anti-Aker crowd really hates when you bring up how bad his offensive line is, especially when you compare it to Keyshawn Vaughan, because both offensive lines were terrible.
Yep.
Vaughan actually used more of his athleticism as a way to avoid yards after contact. When you go and you look at or read Grant Barfield's big article about the 2020 class and the yards created after contact, Keyshawn Vaughan ranked second. Absolutely fantastic to see. Then he'll go in depth and into how he got there, and he said that 84% of those yards were done on just running past the defender. And as we talked about with Akers, in the same light as we don't know if he has the athleticism to do that at the next level. When you watch Keyshawn Vaughan's tape, you can see that though. Mm-hmm. He likes to bounce the ball outside. That's his entire game. Is he smart enough to play and bounce it inside? Yes. I think with more coaching and just just a focus on him being a better inside runner, I think he'll get there. I love Keyshawn Vaughan this year. I love Akers this year. Both of them, I think, have the best opportunity to smash year one. They don't have a lot of guys above them that could actually take work. I know Ronald Jones had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage this past season, but he got benched multiple times for being a terrible pass blocker. There's one thing that's going to get you on the bench faster is letting Brady take a nasty hit. And that may happen, during preseason. Yeah. Just one play is all it takes for Vaughan to smash. I don't believe in Darrell Henderson. It's going to take, Cam Akers' role, because he wasn't able to take Malcolm Brown's spellback role for Todd Gurley. Like, I often see online that Darrell Henderson's competition for touches was with Todd Gurley, and I think that's false. I think it was with Malcolm Brown, just with the massive discrepancy, in actual touches. I think the Rams' entire game plan was to ride Gurley last year with the thought of moving on from him this year. They spent their first pick in this draft on a running back on a team that needed help on the offensive line and just kind of replenishing the defense. They chose to take Akers. I think that speaks a lot of volume to how they want to use them. And just like you said, with opportunity, I think he's going to have one of the highest ones there. And just with that alone, if you don't believe he's going to smash for his rookie contract, like I'm going to probably do with Vaughn, you could trade him this year for a guy like Dobbins, who may end up being suppressed because of Mark Ingram.
And pass protection is one of the things I liked about Vaughn on tape.
Yeah, for sure. He was third highest in the class. He was amazing.
And then my other under, so we just kind of hammered Keyshawn Vaughan there, and I had seen a lot of that anyway. Keyshawn Vaughan was going to be one of my unders, but I'd actually said that I wasn't going to throw Keyshawn Vaughan out there because I've talked about him a ton. My other under was Michael Pittman, who, at least per FF Calc's ADP, and again, I've seen him go higher than this, but at the 210. So Michael Pittman, you had Paris Campbell taken last year. You got some quarterback questions, maybe a bit there. You've got a year of Phillip Rivers, though. But I think he's very complimentary to what T.Y. Hilton is. I think that, we know Hilton's quick and can move around the field and everything, whereas Pittman is going to be more of an underneath the intermediate route guy who, again, can win with his frame. can win with his positioning, can win with some other nuances. And, I think, not the most athletic guy, but has a little bit of Keenan Allen to him. I wouldn't use that as a direct comp, but as a bit of Keenan Allen to him too, with Phillip Rivers coming in. So, Michael Pittman going at the end of the second, I'd expect him more to be up with that tier of like Mims and Chenault, and where I would have a guy like Ruggs and Rager, in those guys that kind of have question marks but have a decent amount of opportunity. The Colts did spend a decent amount of draft capital on Michael Pittman, so he did produce at the college level. So I thought him going that low was a little bit of a steal.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. And it's not that far fetched to think he might have the opportunity in just 1 year to be the number one wide receiver in that offense. T.Y. Hilton's got 1 year left in his contract, and if he has trouble staying healthy this year, I'm not sure he gets a new deal from the Colts. So there could be a ton of opportunity. I don't think Paris Campbell's serious competition. If Pittman reaches his potential, I don't think Campbell's really going to be a factor in his development or opportunity. So I like the situation a lot. I like the player a lot.
Yeah. Dan, you got any overs or unders you want to hit on real quick?
I don't think a lot of players are being overdrafted with just how deep this draft class is. I'm not as super high on Jerry Jeudy, which I guess is massively, against consensus, especially after his landing spot. I still have him top 5. I don't know if he like, to me, I don't know if I take him second off the board. I actually have Rager. I'm a lot higher on Rager just because he's like, I always fall in love with at least one person. Generally, it's a very explosive receiver, and you think it'd be Ruggs. It's actually Rager, just given his overall profile. But I still don't think there's a lot of these players are going to be that should be considered overdrafted. In terms of value, it's just with those, second and third tier receivers that should be late first that are going, early to mid seconds, like a Brian Edwards, like a Laviska Shenault, with Pittman being pushed down, with certain teams, taking a Zach Mosh and AJ Dillon early, you can continue to get value later on in the draft. And I absolutely love that. Like Anthony McFarland going to Pittsburgh. We may speak highly about James Conner with his value. It doesn't mean he's going to stay any healthier. And I think a guy like Anthony McFarland could end up being a really big value for year one. So those are my thoughts so far on that.
Yeah, that's fair. Right. And pretty chalk for you, especially with McFarland. So
yeah, exactly. Let's keep the show rolling here. So Heath, when I've been listening through you guys' shows, I like to see what you guys are bringing out there, and I absolutely love what I've been listening to from from CBS here. There's been an off mention, and I'm trying to go back and figure out which episode I heard it in, but there was mention of you going to a brewery with Gardner Minshew during the Super Bowl week. Is that true?
It is factually accurate.
Perfect. I'm not going to get embarrassed. We are a pro Minshew show, so as soon as I heard this, I told Chris, and we're big fans. I want to hear this story.
So he did, this was my first year getting to go to Radio Row. I didn't actually go to the game, but it was down here. There was no travel or anything, so I was on Radio Row all week. And almost everyone is there selling something.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting situation with just all the people doing interviews and the sponsorships and the whole situation. But I found out day 2 that on Thursday night, Gardner Minshew and Peter King were having an event at a place called Concrete Beach Brewing. And I'll tell you, if you guys or anyone that's listening is ever in Miami and you like craft beer, you must go to the Wynwood Art District. And it's I prefer to go there on a Saturday afternoon there's a little bit of nightlife and there's stuff to do in the evening too, but it's in a pretty rundown part of Miami. But they've taken 5 or 6 blocks, and I'm probably being ignorant, and there's probably a whole another 12 blocks that I've missed. But like, buildings, and a lot of them are abandoned that have been painted, and it's a really cool area to just walk around and look at art. But there are also now, I believe, 4 breweries all within walking distance. I have good friends there at Wynwood Brewing. Jay Wakefield is in the area. I believe there's a new one called Vera Sur, and I've not actually even been there yet. And then there's Concrete Beach, which is the best outside hangout area. There's also a taco place called Coyo Taco. And if you go through the employee-only door in the back of the taco place, it is a speakeasy.
Oh.
So just a very, very cool neighborhood. And so, of course, I had to go to this event and got there early, met Peter King, which was a cool deal. He was extremely cool, talked to us for like 15 minutes before the event.
That's awesome.
Didn't have to do that at all. It was very nice, drinking some beers. They had great beers. They had a Finkel Black IPA, which was one of the best beers I've had so far in 2020. Met Gardner Minshew, talked to him for a little bit, showed him the picture of me dressed up as Gardner Minshew for losing a bet during the 2020 season. He said, "That's ridiculous. You lost the bet. You look awesome." But I will tell you, like he was not wild or crazy or partying at all. He was there doing an event, and one of the things Peter King mentioned and Gardner Minshew mentioned was, while he really appreciated the fact that everybody loved him right away and the jorts and the mustaches and everything, he's on a mission this summer to prove that he's not like a one-year wonder. He's not just the guy with the mustache. He's the real deal. And I think he is the real deal. Like I look at this situation with good weapons, probably a terrible defense, and 600 pass attempts.
Oh.
I think if he plays 16 games, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback.
And no one to push him. Who's their backup there?
That's the thing. Is like
Mike Glennon. They just signed him.
Yes, great. I love it. Love it.
Right.
Great fit. Like I was on a different podcast earlier this week, and they were talking about his consensus ranking, and it's the QB 24.
Ooh.
Everyone's ranking it as if the Jacksonville still might draft a quarterback or still might sign Jameis Winston, and it's his. Like, he's playing 16 games unless he gets hurt.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. And we were huge on Minshew. So when we were doing rookie evaluations last year, and when we looked at, beyond the guys that were highly touted by everybody, Gardner Minshew was right at the top for us as far as guys that showed the traits and the athleticism and the pocket awareness to be able to get it done. The only knock I think I had on Minshew is I noticed a decent amount of balls getting batted down. But other than that, we thought that everything he had was good enough to produce in the NFL. And then when he landed in Jacksonville, it's like, oh, Foles hasn't really done anything outside of Philly. So yeah, that solidified it for us. And I'm kind of with you. I never really doubted that Minshew was the real deal. I mean, he was the guy I was taking after that top tier of quarterbacks, and I ended up with him at a couple places because of it, that I thought had the best chance to, or if he got the opportunity, really take off.
Yeah, and I think like there's been a little bit about his rushing. I don't think you can expect him to have the rushing production that he did last year. I think the hope is that he gets a little better at staying in the pocket and just delivering the ball, because he's not like he is a great athlete. He's not really that fast, and he's just a little bit creative and shifty with the ball. But I think there's a really good opportunity here. And he's like, whether he wants to be the fun guy or not, he's a terribly fun guy to cheer for as well.
Yeah. That's all we want to do. Like, even when I had to kind of like, because I've always been, I wouldn't say the realist. Like, I wish I didn't have to go against. We had debates on Minshew, because there are times you have to have that conversation, especially last year when he got benched for Nick Foles. Like, you had to have conversations about what to do with the dynasty and things like that. And Chris will automatically take the pro Minshew stance. I gotta play devil's advocate, and I can't speak against the bearded Jesus that is of jorts and everything else. So I'm all here for it. I've taken them as startups this year. I have them. I've done like 4 startups this off season, and I have Minshew, and I think it's 3 of them. Like I'm all Minshew. Like I don't see them bringing in Cam Newton. Just wouldn't fit to what they want to do, and I don't think Jay Gruden's the worst coordinator to have to help build him up.
No, Jay Gruden got 3 straight top 6 seasons out of Andy Dalton and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah,
Gardner Minshew can be Andy Dalton and Kirk Cousins.
Hey, and I have no problem with that. Both of them are still in the NFL, and one of them is the quarterback of my favorite team. So here we are.
Yeah. I think Gardner Minshew and Cooper Kupp were probably our 2 most debated players last year, Dan. When I really look at it, just because you were taking the anti-me approach.
Yeah, it sucks too, but it's all good.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead and toss out question 3, which is also yours.
Yes. Well, we'll kind of make this go quick. I don't want to take too much of your time here, Thief. But give me some veteran winners and losers. Some veteran winners and losers post draft. Who are we buying and who are we selling in Dynasty?
Well, I mean, we just talked about Minshew. I think he was a definite winner because they didn't draft. Like they're going to give him a full year. I agree with you guys completely. James Conner was one of the bigger winners. I think I'm going to be really interested how this Tampa Bay thing works out.
It could blow up. It could blow up.
I was more worried about Ronald Jones' future before the draft. Like I like Keyshawn Vaughan. I'm less certain that he's going to take the job from Ronald Jones than I would have been if they would have taken a back earlier. So I think Ronald Jones is a little bit of a winner. And the thing I notice is everyone takes Keyshawn Vaughan before Ronald Jones. But if I asked you to bet $100 on who's going to start week 1, would you bet Keyshawn Vaughan?
No.
Week 1? No, it'd be Ronald Jones. I don't think any rookie running back starts week 1.
I think that's probably true. And I don't know for sure that Ronald Jones got better last year. He still did a couple of really boneheaded things, but he's going to have an opportunity to hold on to that job. And if he just keeps it, he's probably a top 20 back this year, and his value is shot through the roof again. He's younger than Keyshawn Vaughan.
He is.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. My buys that I had down, just to kick it out and kind of keep it moving here a little bit, I had Brandon Cooks down as a buy. With going to Houston and everything, I mean, there's still Stills and Fuller, but they drafted really nobody there. They've got DeAndre Hopkins, 10.5 targets a game to fill. And all Cooks has done when he's seen over 100 targets is averaged 76 receptions, 1,100 over 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, and his career high is only 129 targets. We know that Stills has had injury history. We know Fuller's had injury history. So I think Cooks landing in Houston and them not really doing anything at the wide receiver position kind of solidified him that, yeah, he's going to get a chance to be the one again. And we saw that kind of work out in New Orleans. And then we saw him, still produce with 2 other good wide receivers in Los Angeles. And then the other buy that I kind of had there, or winner, I guess, was Devontae Parker. And you could throw Preston Williams in there, but with the question being veteran, I didn't really want to take a second-year guy coming off of an ACL injury. So Devontae Parker in there, who finally broke out and strung together some good weeks in Miami, not doing anything at the wide receiver position, I think solidified that as a guy I'm looking at. But I think as a whole, the community just stays tepid on Brandon Cooks, and I think this is a year where not being tepid on Brandon Cooks pays off a little bit.
I took him in the 12th round of a startup. 12th. It's my wide receiver, like I think 5. Which
ridiculous.
Just feels criminally like I stole something. Like I should report myself to the police for robbery.
You got anybody that's a buy there, Dan?
For me, I just had a name. DJ Chark. He was already a buy, but just like with Minshew, there's reports of them either taking a wide receiver or quarterback with that 9th pick, trading back, and then taking one there. And They pass obviously on a quarterback for the entire draft pretty much. And then they take Chenault, who isn't a threat to Chark at all. And it felt like between him and Sutton and, even Deebo Samuel, it felt like one of those guys we're going to see, their volume suppressed. All three of their teams were in the news for taking a receiver or for being in the market for one of these top flight receivers. And while, Brandon Ayuk was the first round pick, he won't hurt Deebo Samuel. At least in my opinion, he won't be a true threat to Deebo Samuel. And, Jerry Jeudy going to Denver, I think we'll have to see who Drew Lock truly is to see if that actually hurts Courtland Sutton or not. But Chark, I think, came out of this unscathed. And I absolutely love his pairing with Chenault and with the upside in this offense. I think he's a huge win. And then the biggest loser, I think, is Aaron Rodgers, just with the lack of disregard of wanting to pair him up, of wanting to pair Adams with another receiver and just drafting his backup, Aaron Jones's replacement, and a wannabe Kyle Juszczyk. Like, that's their first 3 picks. And if I'm Rodgers, I'm just like, all right, man, I'm done. Let's go. New team.
Yeah, I did have one tight end buy, one tight end sell as well. I'm buying as much Hayden Hurst as I can right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think he might be a top 5 tight end this year. And I'm kind of selling Noah Fant. Like, I like the pedigree, the way they behaved in the NFL draft did not lead me to believe that he's going to turn into one of the more highly targeted tight ends in the NFL. So I'd like to get out while people are still excited about him.
Unless Drew Lock's going to throw 600 plus times.
Yep.
With Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman there. Yeah.
And his starting tight end from Missouri and Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. Like, there's just, like, I hate using not enough mouths to feed, but I feel like Noah Fant may end up being kind of like OJ Howard, where you're going to see an insane yards per reception, and you'll get 4 or 5 games with him, reaching 7 or 8 plus targets, and that's it.
Yeah, and Hayden Hurst is a really good call too. Austin Hooper finally had his breakout year last year, and then he leaves. He's off to Cleveland, so you've got vacated targets there as well. And our initial thought was, okay, yeah, that's probably going to help Ridley out a little bit, but Hayden Hurst, you got to remember, had a massive pedigree coming in. Very, very athletic. Definitely has the ability. We kind of liked Mark Andrews more, but it's not in that draft class, but it's not because Hayden Hurst was bad, and he's immediately going to land with the opportunity to take over Austin Hooper's target share and being kind of cut from that same mold of just athletic tight end that can get it done in the receiving game. So I completely agree with that. I think Hayden Hurst is flying majorly under the radar right now. So for me, I also had 2 of those. Adam Thielen was the primary one that I had down. And this has a couple of things to do with it. I mean, you lost Diggs. They bring in Justin Jefferson that kind of is going to fit as that Diggs replacement. But Thielen had a 2019 really to forget. 30 receptions, 418 yards, injury plague. There were weeks where they just completely forgot about the receiving game being there. Look, he's going to come in as the wide receiver 1. There's no guarantee that Justin Jefferson necessarily produces your one, but I think they have to count on him too, because behind that you've got Tajay Sharp. That's not going to get it done. So, I think that Thielen is still going to carry a decent amount of value at a stage in his career where that's not necessarily going to be sustainable. He's heading into 30. You've got into his year 30 season. You've got Justin Jefferson there. You've got a run first offense. But he's going to put up some big weeks, and I think he's the type of guy that if you're looking to get, maybe one of your last shots to get good value out of a guy that you're selling off, it's Adam Thielen, and it's just kind of ditto Mark Ingram, who's heading into kind of the twilight of his career, where they drafted J.K. Dobbins. And Ingram was super productive last year, and I don't necessarily see that changing. But I think the writing's on the wall also that he's on the back end. So those are 2 guys that I think you should probably sell off while you can, while they still have value, while you can still get good return on them. And I think the draft kind of solidified that with the way those teams went, bringing in younger talent at the position.
Yeah, I agree. As a Vikings fan, I think you should have been out on Thielen a couple years ago just because of the age. But I don't hate him for redrafts. I still think there's at least one of those years left just with the suppressed offseason. We don't know how quick Justin Jefferson's going to come on. And we've seen Cousins lean on Thielen when he's been healthy. So it depends again on his health and whether or not he can bounce back. But
Sure.
I think one of the interesting things of that Minnesota offense is, and Stephon Diggs talked about this, we're talking about how there are weeks that he just disappeared, or there are weeks that he would go off and then Thielen. He's like, Kirk just throws to whoever defense is not shading coverage towards,
which is smart.
It's right. But there can't be any doubt that this year the person that coverage is going to be shaded towards is Adam Thielen every week.
Right. So you're going to be looking at Justin Jefferson if he comes out fine, or potentially Irv Smith and Kyle Rudolph. Yeah, doesn't give you a warm and fuzzy, huh?
It'll be really interesting to see how good that Vikings defense still is.
They're taking a step back. There's so much. I mean, their secondary, yes, was bad last year, and they didn't really lose much. Rhodes isn't the same. Wayne's never really lived up to his billing. And McKenzie just, I liked him inside, but that's really just what he is. I think they're going to take a step back. Even with NFC North not getting great on offense through the draft, I still think that defense is gonna struggle at times.
Sure. All right, let's go ahead and hit a beer review, mostly because I've got one drink left of this beer, and I need that to be able to review it so that I can refill.
Okay.
Something else.
Beer review.
But of course, Dan, go ahead and kick us off with.
Sure. Again, I'm drinking Vanilla Bitch Slap. It's from Pig Mines Brewery. This is an American red ale that's aged on Madagascar vanilla beans. As you can tell, just based on color wise, it's got the malt, the very medium, the heavy dark brown malty color that you expect from it. I expected a little bit more caramel on it. The vanilla really, really, really cuts through. It's not as thin as I thought it maybe would have been. Just with that American red, I expected a little bit of that thinness to it. It's not thin. It's got a really nice medium body to it. Hops isn't there, just more subtle than it is. It's more complementary. The entire beer is just complementary to the vanilla overall. I'm a big fan. We are a big red ale show. We love red ales. We wish more breweries would do them. And I'm excited to pick this up. I was excited to try it. And I've been massively impressed with what I've had. And if there's an opportunity for you guys to get it, might be a little more difficult for you, Heath, being that this is in some random city in Illinois. But I liked it. I thought they did a good job with this beer.
Sure. I was drinking Funhouse from Sudwork Brewing. They're out of California, so a little bit more broadly distributed, but picked up here in St. Louis. Again, this is it's a blueberry pastry stout, so lactose and vanilla on it, and really at the core, it's a blueberry sour, basically. There's a ton of blueberry on it. It's tart, which you would expect out of that. The vanilla doesn't really cut through, but serves as more of an undertone to it, and then you definitely get the creaminess that you would expect out of anything that really has lactose sugar added to it. So. Again, medium body, decent amount of tartness to it. None of the flavors really dominate. I think it's very, very well balanced. And with sours, you tend to get a little bit dominant with fruit and the tartness that takes away from anything else they might add to it. But this did not do this. This is a very well balanced beer. Pretty impressed with it. And Heath, you had one you were drinking and one you said you wanted to talk about. So whatever you want to toss some good words out there for, the floor is yours.
Yes, this is a Bushka stout is one of the first stouts I found in South Florida, and I appreciate it so much. First off, because the can is absolutely beautiful, and second, because it is really, really hard to find local breweries distributing dark beers in South Florida.
Really?
I couldn't get all of the sours and hazies and lagers and pilsners that I want down here because everybody drinks at the beach. And a lot of people don't think that dark beers should be drank when it's 95 degrees outside and you're sitting at the beach. I don't really agree with that. I'll take a 6-pack of porters or stouts and just sit at the beach and drink them. Yes.
All day.
The thing I think that I like, this was one of the first dark beers that I fell for down here. I think the reason is because it reminds me just a little bit of Boulevard Bully Porter.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Dark beer that's got a little bit of bite, and it's got a little bit of Coca-Cola to it as well, which I don't drink Coke anymore, so it's kind of nice to get that little taste just a little bit. But yeah, it's I really enjoy it. Great local brewery, and then the one you guys probably get this all the time. I've been drinking quite a bit of Keller Haze from Sun King.
Okay.
And
we went to Sun King actually on our way up to Ohio last year. We got to swing by Sun King. We stayed in Indiana and actually spent an evening drinking at Sun King.
Yes, we did.
It's a really good beer. Everything I've ever had from them. It's very rare that we get a beer from Sun King down here. We just started getting a few from Iowa and a few every once in a while from Indiana, but I've really enjoyed the Keller Haze.
Did you get Toppling Goliath down there? I'm
assuming that just showed up like I have. There's some listeners and I'd say friends that live in Iowa that occasionally send me top that. What is it? Pseudo Sue?
Yep.
Pseudo Sue, yes.
We got like 90 variants of that around here. There's King Sue and there's like double dry hop versions and all sorts of stuff. So we might have to get on that train and send you some beer, especially if you don't get dark beer there, because we're very seasonal in the way our beer flows. So yeah, we find almost nothing but porters and stouts and barrel aged stuff throughout the winter. It's really hard to come across anything really other than that from basically December through about March, and then you start to see other stuff show up. So
I just like to have a good variety of all the different beers all the year round.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. Are you a big can art guy, by the way?
I would like, I don't know if I'm probably not. Like, am I a big relative to the beer world? I probably wouldn't qualify as a big can art guy, but I really enjoy it.
I was just kicking it out there because my liquor cabinet is all done up in can art. I actually took an old hutch and we did, I think, the first 100 and some odd episodes worth of beer that we had on. I would take my favorite ones and strip the label off or cut the aluminum and then threw it on this old hutch and then epoxied over it. So I've got a beer label, beer art liquor cabinet.
That's very cool.
Yeah. All right. So keeping it with craft beer, though. So this is something I actually think about a lot, and I know I said in fantasy. I just want to keep this to craft beer here since we're on the subject. Trends, and we've seen a couple trends over the years. Everything from hazies taking over everything to let's just throw as much adjuncts in something and hope we get something good out of it. So I wanted to kick out there. And we'll start with you on this one, Heath. But what are some trends in craft beer? Some things that you like, some things you wish you saw more of, some things maybe that don't make a whole lot of sense as it kind of comes and flows, ebbs and flows as to what people are doing.
The thing that I wish I saw more of is by far the easiest question, because I literally have begged breweries on Twitter to do more of this, and they all just disregard me because apparently my tastes are not like everyone else's. But I love black IPAs.
Oh my God, yes.
And no one will make enough black IPAs, and they certainly won't distribute them in South Florida. Like, every time I find one, I just happen to randomly be there on a day that they are brewing a batch. And I'm like, okay, how many growlers can I take with me? And how long will it last? I wish Like somebody could just start making one in 6-packs and just take all of my money.
I'm gonna send you some. Are you familiar with the brewery Greenbush?
Green Bush. I don't think so.
Okay, I've got it. I can't remember where they're from. Well, they make a black IPA called Anger. It's insanely good. It's got Godzilla on the can, so you can appreciate the can art right away. It's amazing. It's super old school. But as soon as we get that back in, I'll get in contact with you and I'll try to send you some.
I enjoyed and still enjoy the hazy trend.
Yeah.
I really, really, really like and I don't know if it's a trend. I hope it's just a mainstay, but the Mexican hot chocolate.
Yeah, like Azaka from Stone and
Let's go.
yeah.
Let's go Besa, whatever. I always mispronounce it.
That's it. No, you're right.
Yep.
Azaka is something entirely different. I think that's the coffee one. But yeah, Zucca we featured them a little while back. And I think I had something else. I don't remember what it was that was Mexican hot chocolate though. Probably in the winter.
Hubbard Escape does a great one. It's like Califantation. It's like it's got like three. Or I got one here. It's a Skull from Three Floyds. It's a Imperial Porter with like 3 different peppers in it. Something just insane.
Yeah, Westbrook in Charleston, South Carolina has like 17 variations of theirs.
Holy crap.
They're almost all delicious. So I noticed this winter, I guess, like a few of the breweries down here did it. I kind of think hopefully next winter all of them are going to do it. And then like as far as things I don't like, it's not really so much beers that breweries are making. I really don't like the whole they're not a craft brewery anymore. Somebody bought them out. I don't like them. You shouldn't drink them.
Yeah.
Or just hating on the hazy thing or hating on sours or whatever. Like, who cares if other people enjoy a certain type of beer? Just shut up about it.
Right?
Yeah, it's not trendy anymore. We got to jump to the next thing. Like, I'm with you. I threw hazies out there because they blew up a couple of years ago, but I'm still on board with that. For me, something I wish I saw more of is I wish I saw more people doing more of the traditional styles really, really well, like your Belgian doubles and triples and your red ales, which we mentioned, and your amber ales and your copper lagers, and becoming very, very good at doing things without adjuncts, but doing things with different grain profiles, different hop profiles, and things of that nature. And we have a brewery around here that is very good at it, Riggs, which I know Dan's familiar with.
Love Riggs.
Who is just, they were German trained and they just are very, very good at doing your traditional styles where it's not throwing a ton of adjuncts into it. And I just, after you've been doing stuff that has a boatload of adjuncts thrown into it, I say that as I was drinking a beer that had a bunch of adjuncts in it, because they're good. But, occasionally you want to revert back to like, give me a good wheat ale or give me a good double or triple or give me a good just classic West Coast IPA, and you just don't have a whole lot of options there because everybody's trying to do something that somebody else isn't doing. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that as far as just doing really good just beer with your traditional ingredients and not a bunch of stuff thrown into it. Not to say I don't like the stuff with a bunch of stuff thrown into it. I love it. We love that. We love the different stuff that lands that way, but I think it's taken away from some of like those classic cleaner flavors. And since I've gotten into the homebrew side of it and stuff a little bit more, I've got a kind of a newer appreciation for that, if you will.
Well, I think that's why I fell for the hazy thing was you couldn't find pilsners and lagers that I really liked, and it like a hazy, if it's done right, can just be really simple and just extremely crushable, and it doesn't have to have anything special on it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very, very much, because what makes a hazy, it's the hop additions in the yeast strain. That's what makes a hazy. As far as things that I don't like, I think the one thing that's bothered me probably the most is just kind of the way that once one brewery does something, it's the trend itself. Like once one brewery does something and it blows up, everybody turns around and tries to do it. It seems like, especially around, not so much St. Louis, but like in Springfield, where you have pretty good distribution and stuff coming through, which is where I moved here from. But I could only drink so many chocolate peanut butter porters in a winter before I'm tired of chocolate peanut butter porters. But everybody and their mother's putting one on the shelf. So
pretty much.
I think that kind of irks me, because like, all right, there's variety in the sense of I can get this from 7 different breweries, but if you're a brewery I haven't heard of and don't necessarily have an impression of, and then there's like Pollyanna over here or something that everything I've had from them is good, like I'm not gonna jump to you. So do something to differentiate.
I agree.
And Dan, you're in the industry.
Yeah, I see a lot of like, I guess in my area, I wish more breweries would actually just stick to making a core set of beers. There's 2 breweries in there that we always feature. I won't call them out too much on it, but that just doesn't stick to making one beer and just really focusing on it. They want to keep building their massive inventory of one-offs, and that gets kind of annoying because I want to be able to know that a beer is going to be there, at some point again, and not have to just have it be a one and done. One specific style of IPA I'm glad it's almost on its way out is brute IPAs. I don't know why somebody thought it was a good idea to make a dry IPA, but fuck out of here, man. Leave. Like, I found one that I like that's from Old Nation. They did a brute style of M43, and they basically just reduced the overall juice mouthfeel on it. It's still fairly juicy for a brew. It's the juiciest brewed I've had, which is probably why it's one of the that I liked. But I'm glad that trend's gone. I do want to see more West Coast IPAs. I absolutely love them. Some of them are hit or miss. Like, if they're too dank, I get kind of sick of it pretty quickly. But I want a good West Coast. I love a good pale. I love a good crushable beer. I'm actually glad we're seeing more local pales coming through, because I think it to me, it just brings out the hops more. And just more and more breweries are doing that, which is to your point, Hopper, that it's once one brewery finds a niche and it takes off, everybody around them will do it. And thankfully for the local low carb IPA scene, it's been a good, nice way to see. I can drink something refreshing and not feel like I'm bloated after 2 beers.
Yeah. One other thing I selfishly want to see more of is smashes, single malt, single hop, just because I think it lets you showcase what a hop or what a malt can do for a beer. I'd like to see more of that on shelves. I don't think you ever will, just because it's not overly complex. I know that Schlafly down here has done a run of single malt and single hop and smash style beers, and I know a couple of smaller breweries are doing it. And it's as much of a learning thing if you're brewing to figure out what you're going to get out of a specific malt or hop as it is to make a good beer. But it's actually one of the things I have on deck to brew is a single malt, single hop. So I would like to see more of those as well, just to kind of showcase what a single grain and hop can do for a beer. Simplistic. All right. Dan, go ahead with the next question, because speaking of beer, I need another one.
Yeah, let's kind of speed this up here. Last football question here, and that's just redraft's still a few months away, but we're still in massive rookie infatuation season where everyone wants to talk rookies, everyone wants to prop them up, especially in Dynasty. But let's look at it through the redraft lens. Rookie running backs especially have seemed to always been smash spots. Josh Jacobs and Miles Sanders were both very productive. Devin Singletary, in what was considered a weak rookie class last year, were able to give you fantasy value. But let's just look at rookies as a whole. Is there any rookies, Heath, that you were maybe targeting in your redraft leagues this year? Just
It's
broad.
Yeah, it's really tough because, like you said this at the very beginning. I think I don't hate players. I hate the ADP. I'm terrified of what Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's ADP
Yeah,
is going to end up. Like there've been a couple of mocks we've done lately, and he's gone in the second round.
I will say this: I took him in the 4th round. I've done one rookie mock.
Oh, I love that.
One redraft mock. Took him as my RB2 behind Delvin Cook. I think it was a late 4th. So
I will take him in every single draft that I participate in if I can get him in the 4th round. But I don't think that's going to be reality when we get to July and August at all. I'm probably going to try to get a little bit of Dobbins because he's going. I love his talent. He was my second favorite back coming into the draft. And Mark Ingram's a running back over 30, and at the very least, Dobbins could just take that Gus Edwards role and take a little bit more, and he's going to be by far the cheapest of them in redraft. I'm going to have a little bit of Judy. I'm going to have a little bit in the double-digit rounds of Chenault, but I would assume I'm going to miss out on Akers because everyone's just going to assume that he's going to take the job immediately and smash. I will take a little if I have a pick at the end of the 6th round, I kind of like just taking Keyshawn Vaughan and Ronald Jones that 6-7 turn. Because Vaughn always goes. I guess the mocks redraft mocks I've been doing, Vaughn always goes before Jones. So I'll take Vaughn at the end of the 6th, Jones start of the 7th, and probably have a starting running back at some point.
Yeah, you probably like I said, great call. Like you speak of taking the veteran and rookie backfield. You mentioned Dobbins. Like, why not go Mark Ingram? Who will have suppressed value because of the Dobbins. We saw Gus Edwards, I think, had 700 rushing yards as a backup. You saw Mark Ingram break down towards the end of last season, which put a massive hindrance on the Baltimore Ravens offense. You bring in a guy like Dobbins, who's obviously extremely explosive, a fantastic athlete. He could outright just Nick Chubb his way through that backfield and be the starter, second half of the season.
Yep. Be good. I want kind of whoever is the lowest out of that Edwards-Hilaire, Taylor, Dobbins, Swift quad of backs there. DeAndre Swift's interesting because of the inability of Kerryon Johnson to, stay healthy throughout college and really his first couple of years in the NFL. We know he's talented. They're a similar type of back, but I don't think you can trust him to carry a full workload. So I think there's insulated value there with Swift, almost in the same way that there is with Dobbins. And then Taylor and Mack are at least going to be, I would assume, 1A, 1B at worst. It's going to be kind of a situation like what you're going to get really in Tampa Bay, where, Ronald Jones may come in as a starter for Tampa Bay, just like Marlon Mack may come in as a starter for the Colts, but there's a non-zero, definitely better than non-zero chance that flips over. So, if one of those guys, any of those four is there to value, or even Keyshawn Vaughan, Ronald Jones, I like that pairing. Something like that would be on the table for me at the running back position. Is there anybody wide receiver wise you're kind of looking at, Heath? I know wide receivers don't typically do as much year one.
Yeah, I don't mind Judy or Lamb if they fall far enough, but if I could get them in the 7th or 8th, I think that's worth a dart throw. And then in the double digit rounds, Pittman, Chenault, and Mims, yes. I think all have good sleeper appeal.
Yeah, Denzel Mims was the one I was looking at in the double digit rounds, just landing with the Jets. You've got Jamison Crowder there, but I mean, those are obviously going to be different roles. Crowder's pretty much pinned into the slot, not even penciled. I mean, that's just where he's going to play. You lose Robbie Anderson there. Yeah, you got, I want to say Perriman, but I like Denzel Mims as a dart throw. And then Justin Jefferson also, depending on where he goes. If they're shading towards Thielen, like you mentioned, Heath, then give me Justin Jefferson as a wide receiver that could see some targets. And I thought what didn't have as much development as a guy like maybe Chenault or Mims to be NFL ready. Dan?
Oh yeah, I'm just looking over some of the redraft, just some of the fantasy calc here mock drafts that they've gone through. Keyshawn Vaughan went into the 11th round, which I don't know how real that could actually be, but hey, I'm on top of the board with that. Running backs, I do agree. I'll just take whoever falls out of the big running backs. I think Swift could be value just because of Kerryon Johnson. If Patricia and Bevel are indeed playing for their jobs next year, they may lean on the better do it all back. I do agree that Cam Akers can probably be overdrafted. I think Jonathan Taylor could actually find himself in value if they decide to ride him in the same way that, again, like Nick Chubb was able to will his way into a starting role in Cleveland a couple of years ago. You could see that with Jonathan Taylor behind arguably one of the best offensive lines in football. As for receivers, just whatever rookie is there as a late round dart throw. I would hope that maybe Lamb could, become a double digit round guy. I just don't think it's going to happen. Which means I love Gallup because I want at least one piece of that offense. I love Justin Jefferson because I do think the Vikings defense is going to take a step back and they're going to have to throw the football a bit more. Jalen Reagor probably won't be double digit round guy, but if he looks like any decent value, I'll take a shot on Carson Wentz, just pushing vertically with them. And then, as you guys mentioned, Pittman, maybe some T. Higgins if the team is actually not lying and he's going to be a starter from day one. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bengals are one of those teams that is running the most, 11 personnel out there, and they're just pumping the football and just pushing it with Mixon and Burrow.
Sure. All right, wrapping it up here. I wanted to take one more visit to beer here at the end of the show. So, Heath, you threw one out there. Let's just kind of go. Anything, any style, any particular beer recently that stood out that you want to throw out there?
I had some friends that went on a kind of a beercation to Asheville and brought me back some beer and had Mountain Shadow Black IPA from Blowing Rock, Void of Haze from Green Man, and then Chupacabra Mexican Stout from Boonshine. All the types we've been talking about. Right. Then I'll just with if you do live in Missouri and you can get Bully Porter, drink Bully Porter, please, because they don't sell enough of it. And every time I go back there, I find it in fewer and fewer stores, and I don't want it to disappear. I'd be really sad if that happened.
All right, next time I'm out, as soon as everything gets open around here, which most liquor stores still are,
yes, they are.
About an every 2-week trip that results in a haul of alcohol for me. So I will be sure to pick some up for you.
Yes.
So for me, I did pick up a healthy amount of beer the other day. I had the Sudwork on tonight. One thing that probably won't see the show just because of timing and everything, because I'll drink it too fast. But Old Bakery, which is down here on the river, put out a blueberry cream ale, which was to support 1, Pride, and 2, Vivint Health. So, one of those charitable beers. But I thought overall it was another very, very good, just really solid beer that it was fruit forward, but it wasn't overwhelming. You still got some of the obviously the creaminess, but a little bit of hop character out of it as well for a cream ale. And I thought that it had really good balance. And then I'll throw it out there just because I feel like there's some synergy here between black IPAs and a style that I wish got done a lot more. But white stouts is something that I wish people would do more of, where you get the mouthfeel and all the flavors of a stout, but you have all the drinkability and everything of an ale in it. So JP Casper white stout is, I mention it all the freaking time. It is one of my favorite beers that has ever been done. And then I actually had, it was not as good as a normal Neapolitan stout, but Saugatuck did a Neapolitan take on a white stout, which is more strawberry than chocolate. The normal stout's more chocolate than strawberry, but overall, I thought that was very, very solid too. So, white stouts are something that I'm definitely on the lookout for here a lot more recently, because you get all of the flavor without that heavy weight that comes with the stout.
Yeah. For me, I've talked about it a bunch. Rodell Brewing's Blueberry Cream Ale. They're out of Peoria here in Illinois. Unfortunately, they don't distribute. So if you're ever in the Peoria area, I do recommend going to Rodell. Probably the best cream ale I've ever had. Just with the fantastic balance of the blueberry flavor profile with the vanilla creamy cream ale profile. I've fallen in love with fruited IPAs. Little Beaver, it's a brewery out of Bloomington, Illinois here, did a blackberry variant on their Rainbows, which is their pale ale, which is their hazy pale ale. They added lactose and milk sugar, vanilla and milk sugar to it, and with the blackberry overall to it. It's one of the best beers I've had so far. I've just had a blackberry smoothie from Untitled Arts out of Wisconsin, I believe, and that's just a blender Weiss with blackberry puree, which is incredibly delicious. I've recently brought up the Overfruit during our live stream of the first round of the draft out of Penrose, which is out of Chicago, and which is again another awesome blackberry fruited beer. So those have definitely been one of my favorites. Riggs is Hefeweizen, if you're speaking of just traditional old style those traditional old school beers. Riggs' Hefeweizen has been the best hef I've had. Just with the perfect balance of banana and clove.
I forgot about that Overfruit, mostly because Kane made us chug Big Bad Baptist Quad Barrel.
God, that was we
that was rough.
13.5% beer on draft night was not the best decision.
Nope. All right, that's all we got for you, Heath. Thank you so much. This has actually been a blast. Not that I didn't think it wouldn't be, but this has absolutely been a blast. It's been great getting to hang out, talk football with you. Definitely talk beer. I feel like we could probably talk beer for, probably another 6 or 7 hours at the way we got going on that. So, absolutely, thank you for taking the time.
I really appreciate you guys having me on, and we'll do it again sometime.
Oh, of course, man. Of course.
Absolutely. We've got Ball Blast on next week. Is that right, Dan? You handle the bookings here.
Yep, we're getting the Ball Blast girls on. Talk a little rookies. We're gonna do pretty much the same thing we did here, and just kind of do a non-focused episode before we find some more fine-tuned topics to dive into.
And that'll definitely be a fun one, because you're gonna have a lot of opinions flying around in that one. So that's gonna be
a lot of arguing and yeah.
Respectful. But it's gonna be a fun time. I'm looking forward to that one. Just like I was looking forward to this. So again, thank you to Heath Cummings. Be sure, if for some reason you're living under a rock, to make sure that you check him out. The CBS podcasts are great. Like I said, that was kind of what got me into the whole fantasy football podcast game, as far as actually listening to them. And now I'm 292 episodes into recording one. So there's that. Follow the show at Beerfield FF on Twitter, Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube. Like, subscribe there. I am at Hop BFF with 2 P's. Dan, you want to send us out or not send us out? Go ahead and give yourself some love. I don't even know what we're doing anymore.
With laughs. Again, thank you, Heath, for jumping onto the show with us. Again, as Hopper mentioned, we're having the Ball Blast girls on for next week. After that, the Fantasy Headliners are going to come on.
Oh, I forgot we lined up Jake and Kyle.
We'll get those guys on as we continue this 6-pack, 12-pack, whatever pack of questions. That's all we got. See you guys later.
See ya.